all have done. It's been great to see the progression, as well as the other thing that I really like is even though we're learning from each other, I learn from you as well as you're learning from the United States. There's always that little cultural difference, and that little nuance makes your community what it is. And I always find that's great. So I'm going to talk, since this is my fourth time, I'm trying to figure out what am I going to talk about now. So I work now for a utility, the Tucson water utility, and right now in the United States, probably about the same time that this green infrastructure at the border was starting to bubble up. In the United States nationally, the utilities are now talking about what we call the one water concept, one water, one future. So I'm going to touch a little bit about that and how it ties in with green infrastructure. But before I do that, let me see if I hit the right button. I'm going to say that I'm going to talk about your story because this is about you and about what you've done in your community. So I'm going to do a little recap about the first conference that was also about resiliency, but just starting the language and the talking. And then also the second conference, which happened in Tucson. And then that was, we were talking again a lot about the benefits of green infrastructure from a cost-benefit analysis and how do we take that to the next step so that developers and there's dollar signs behind it all. And then last year, I talked a little bit about the connection between green infrastructure and water and climate change. So that's on the global level. And then so today, it's going to end on the one water concept, one future, and it's all about sustainability. So remember this, Juarez, there's Anna up there, and we were talking on a panel. And for me, it was all about sharing with you how we institutionalize some of the green infrastructure, how it got into our policies and our regulations. And it wasn't easy. And one of the things that was a lesson learned for me, and I shared with you, was that we had to all understand the conversation and the language that we were all talking. Because one thing about green infrastructure is it's a lot of people have their hands in that pot. The engineers, the attorneys, risk management, the hydrologists. And so if we can start understanding each other in that language, then we can get a little farther. Okay, so the second one was about that cost-benefit analysis. And for me, I'm not an economist, so that was a tough one for me. But I listened to the economist from Philadelphia in Juarez, and it struck me, oh my God, I know what that language is. I had to learn it a little bit, but it was all about the triple bottom line, right? The social, the environmental, and the economic benefits of all of this. And at first, when you look at it, it seems like it's all soft costs. How do you talk about human health or the value of livability? But the economists, they're talking that language, and they know how to put money to all of that. And so when they do a cost-benefit analysis across the way, because I talked to some of the folks from Mexico, and asked them as we were walking around touring Brad Lancaster's home, and they were saying, oh yeah, I know what that is. We do the same thing in Mexico. So I know you guys have that same language here. So you just have to also maybe tie in with some economists and have them tell you what it is that we're talking about when they talk about money and human value and livability and walkability. There's a monetary value to that. One of the great advantages of the United States is our regulators, the EPA, although some of this may all change, and the DOE, they set some of those values. So we understand it from a regulation standpoint, what we can and cannot use in terms of some of those dollar signs. So the lesson learned was you can monetize those benefits. There is dollar signs associated with it. So we just have to learn the language of the economists a little bit in order to push forward what we want to do with green infrastructure. All right, climate change. I know there were several speakers earlier that talked about climate change. So if you look, these are hundreds of thousands of years, and that carbon dioxide level has been very steady, that horizontal line that's going, and then somewhere, about 1950, it just shot straight up, right? And what the climate scientists are saying is that carbon dioxide level is directly associated with the temperature rise that's happening globally also. Okay, so what do we do about that? Carbon dioxide, that greenhouse gases up in the air, our temperatures rising. The geologists and the anthropologists are saying we have a whole new epoch happening, and they're calling it the Anthropocene, or let's see, I think the British call it the Anthropocene. So I don't know with your accent what you want to call that, but they're saying that it's all man-made, that this era and that rise in that temperature and the carbon gases have to do with everything we've done. We're building cities, and those cities have been built. It's not that they were built wrong, we just didn't know any better. But now we know better, so we're trying to we can't reverse it because it's there, but maybe we can slow it down a little bit so that in the future, our future generations will be able to have a great community. All right, so that's somewhat a little bit of a connection between climate change, because that green infrastructure is going to be one of those litigations to help us make a better community. So now let's get into a little bit about that one water concept and what is Tucson doing and what does that all mean? Well, one water concept, that one water, one future, is about providing that reliable water source to our communities, to everyone with equity. That it's not just for whoever can afford it, but it's for everyone. So the U.S. Water Alliance, there's several groups that are now conversing on this. Last year, 2016, in New Orleans was the first summit of this one water concept. So, you know, it's in the neophyte stage, much as this group was in that 5 years ago, maybe, when Anna started it in Tijuana. So what this whole group is saying about the one water concept is you have to work in conjunction with other partners, that we can't do it alone. We have to work with hydrologists. We have to work with the people in the cities, the citizens, as well as the planners, the landscape architects, the architects, that it's all about the big picture, because it's like a domino effect. If you work on something, on one piece, say just the small green infrastructure here, do we understand how it's going to affect the downstream waters? Or what happened upstream in order to make that happen in that one green infrastructure? So it's about a lot of different things. It's about green infrastructure, resource recovery, and that's water resource recovery. How are we reusing the water we have? How are we really looking to say that every drop is important? We're not going to toss away any of it. And then watershed planning, that's the big picture, watersheds. Cities and counties have boundaries, watersheds do not. So when I talk about the watershed from Tucson, it's about the water that comes out from Mount Lemmon, that's in the county, or even in the next jurisdiction. So we're going to have to partner with all of those jurisdictions as well. All right, and climate resiliency. In the end, we're trying to work to make a better community, and in that community, how are we going to make it livable for all of us? And because I work for Tucson Water, we always talk about water efficiency. It's not water conservation anymore, because we know we have to use water. We need water to drink, we need some water to flush our toilets, water to wash our clothes. So we know we're going to use water, but can we use it more efficiently? So the one water approach, In general, it has some unifying characteristics that, again, all water has value. Every drop of water, no matter what form it takes, if it's clean water, dirty water, salty water from agricultures, it still has value. And that value has multiple benefits. It's not just for drinking or taking a bath, but it's community-wide, region-wide, and it's a systems approach. I know the engineers understand systems. So it's very much, it's their language that we're talking here. It's about systems and understanding what those systems are. So again, thinking the watershed. What is it that we're really looking at when we talk about the watershed? From the mountains to the lakes and then down to the oceans. And most of all, we can't do it alone. So it's about partnerships. So the one water, let's see, they're having another convening this year in New Orleans again in June. So I'll be there in June with meeting new partners and trying to understand what's happening. But the U.S. Water Alliance is a membership group, and all of those members are different. Most of them are from public jurisdictions who do work in water utilities, but there are also nonprofits as well as funders. So there's different funders also involved in this. All right, so the future. Can we think about the future differently, not looking at how we always look at things, right? How can we think about the future, not rely about standards from the past? I think we heard that. The past and the standards may not be relevant tomorrow. So let's be creative and think about that a little bit more. Think about what can we do with groundwater, or do we have to just leave it there, or how can it benefit the environment as well as people? And of course, the surface water, that's what green infrastructure mostly gets, is that surface water. Rainwater harvesting off of roofs, off of individual properties, or, you know, like this guy with the umbrella, you know, that kind of rainwater, then you're storing the water to use somewhere else. And then, of course, wastewater, whether it's gray or black. That's going to be a topic of tomorrow, so think about it. Tucson Water, even though it knows as a utility, toilet to tap is not a concept that's accepted by the general public, but we know that the day is going to come when we're going to have to use that resource. And then we're already using our reclaimed water, at least in the United States, in Tucson. None of the golf courses that get built today can use potable water. It all has to be reclaimed water. So these are the 6 focus fields that One Water looks at. There's the reliable and resilient utilities. So that's where I work now, we fall into, is the utilities. And then thriving city. That's where all of you and all of us live in. And so how are we making our cities more livable and the quality of life? And then, of course, there's always business and industry. They're using waters. We still have mines, and we still have big businesses that need to use water to make their products. And sustainable agriculture. If we don't have farms, we're not going to have food. So we have to include agriculture in this One Water concept. Social and economic inclusions. That's all about social justice and equity. That this water is available and accessible to all. And then, of course, our environment, our wetlands, our habitats, the open space, that's all important for livability. So let's talk about the reliability and resilience of utilities. That's where each of these little focus areas has about 3 to 4 action items. So green infrastructure falls into that first item about utilities. For Tucson, we don't have a water utility, so I'm just going to ask. I hope it gets right in Spanish. Do you guys have a stormwater utility? No? No? Okay. Tucson doesn't have a stormwater utility either. But a lot of cities that are trying to figure out how to do their stormwaters, so stormwater is different from flood control. Flood control is the bigger watershed picture, where stormwater is more within the jurisdictions and how they handle the water on the streets and in their water courses. So some communities have stormwater utilities, and that's where that utility comes in, and that's why that's in that category, although Tucson does not have a stormwater utility. But we still know it's an important water source, so every once in a while, like every other year, that question pops up with the elected officials, we need a stormwater utility, but they haven't passed one yet. And then thriving cities, integrating planning across the water cycle. So all the bureaus or the jurisdictions, whether you're a water department, a wastewater department, transportation, we all have to figure out how to work together. That one drop of water falls into a lot of different categories. So how does this work in Tucson? I'm trying to give you a little idea how the one water concept works. So number one, that reliability and utilizing green infrastructure. I mentioned that it's the stormwater utility. Some jurisdictions, Oro Valley in the basin, has that water utility tax, the stormwater utility tax. So most of the time, the way that works is, when you have it, it's about impermeable surfaces. So the more you have, the more you get charged, because you're having a lot of runoff off your property. And then we're going to figure out how to capture that runoff or how to do it, but we have a revenue source in order to do it. So most places like Philadelphia, I just came from Portland, some of the bigger cities, Los Angeles, they all have stormwater utilities. Okay, so in Arizona, and especially in Tucson, it does not make sense to say that green infrastructure is there to replenish our aquifer, because our aquifer is so far down that one drop of water is never in its lifetime going to see an aquifer. But what we do say is that water can infiltrate in that basin, and it's going to wet the soil, and that moisture in turn is going to help us grow our urban canopy, which is very important for coolness, air quality, and mental health. And then the urban canopy, in turn, is going to help us mitigate that urban heat island, right? Do you guys get up about as hot as we do? Yeah. Okay, right, so you know how hot it gets in the summer. So that's what that canopy is going to help mitigate. And then also, if we mitigate the heat, then people will walk more. So health, again, is very primary up there. And then also increasing that sense of place, unifying, pride in your community. Great. So the other part about that utility is that wastewater is a resource. And remember I said that toilet to tap? So Tucson Water is thinking about it, even though it may not be, 50 years in the future. Water utilities have to think about that, just like electric utilities have to think that far in the future on planning where the supply is going to come from. So with utilities, it's all about supply and demand. If our cities are getting bigger and our populations are getting more in numbers and more diverse, we're going to need different sources of water. So in Arizona right now, we're testing something out. It just got deployed this month. And a lot of jurisdictions are working together, and what we're doing is a beer challenge. Okay, so we're not going to talk about toilet to tap. We're going to talk about toilet to beer. And then we're going to see how many people like the beer. We think that people will more likely drink beer before they drink the toilet water. So what they did was there's this huge semi that they equipped with equipment to clean the water. And this semi is now driving around in Arizona. And what it's doing is going to communities that have wastewater treatment plants. And then it says, give us some of your wastewater treatment water, and we're going to put it through this cycle that's in this semi, and then we're going to give that water to the breweries. And the breweries are going to brew the water, or brew their beer with that water. And then sometime in early fall, end of summer, there's going to be a tasting contest. And everybody's going to be invited. So if you guys want to come, you can come and taste that beer too. So that's happening. So it's a lot of jurisdictions, a lot of water departments, a lot of wastewater departments, the University of Arizona, and people who are looking at water quality. They're all involved in this to see how it goes. All right, thriving cities, integrating. So looking at the entire water cycle, from raindrops, evaporation, raindrops, down again. For the utilities, it's all about where is that water source. So what is the supply? Where does it come from? Is it groundwater, rainwater, surface water, storm water? And then how is it delivered? Is it pipes or is it green infrastructure? And then the excess, how do we remove it? How do we clean it? And then how do we use it again? But also that big picture of the watershed. So again, looking from the top, where does that water come from? The mountains, the watersheds. Because if you do something, and I know in Arizona this has been a big problem with fire. So fires north of Phoenix that have happened and taken out whole forests. The Salt River Water Project is having terrible problems with sediment runoff. So the fires killed all those trees, the trees in turn left bare soil. All that runoff from upstream is now coming down into the reservoirs and causing sediment. So again, it's thinking that whole cycle. So the Nature Conservancy is working with that utility and they're planting more trees and they're trying to figure out how to divert that sediment or keep it upstream rather than downstream. All right, the social and economic inclusion. Clean water for everybody. What is the safety net as a utility do we have to put in place? I'm going to give a lot of credit to Tucson because it is a social justice issue. And part of it, I'm saying that because Tucson Water has a rebate for rainwater harvesting. So you can get a cistern or you can do passive water harvesting. And if you implement it at your home, we give you a rebate for doing that because we think it's a good thing to do. But what we found when we started mapping where were the homes that was getting all those rebates, they were all up in the foothills, in the middle, high, and high income areas. And if you think about it, the low income folks, they don't have that disposable money to invest, to buy, to put it in, and then get the money back. So what Tucson Water did was they did a loan and grant program. So if you fall within a certain income bracket, you can get a grant. You don't have to pay the grant back. And then if you want more than what the grant pays for, you want a bigger cistern, you can apply for a loan. And if you install it and you get your rebate, I'd say 85 to 90% of the time, that rebate pays the loan off. So they don't have to upfront the money. The city is helping them put that in. And that's been very successful. So now we have another contractor coming on board to help do more of that kind of a program and outreach. All right, wastewater services. So we want to make sure they have all of that. Okay, again, Tucson Water. I think the new director we have is very future thinking. So we're thinking about how do we also invest in our riparian areas and the ecosystem without harming or depleting them of more water because we need it in the city. So the top picture today, that's the Santa Cruz River. And it looks like that because the city of Tucson has for years been drawing down on that water. So that aquifer went way down and the vegetation could not survive anymore. So what Tucson Water is now looking to do is team up with the wastewater department And they have a new wastewater plant that has cleaner water coming out of it. We want to divert some of that water back into the Santa Cruz. So it's not going to be a river from bank to bank, but we're going to be able to enhance a riparian area, bring back some habitat, bring back some wildlife, and then also nurture it with more native plants and vegetation so that we can grow the native habitat and wildlife to come back as well. All right, so cultivating the native vegetation. So I just came back from Portland. So this is something I just want you guys to think about because you've done quite a bit of work. You've looked to your funding agency for projects to put in the ground, but how are you going to grow the capacity, right? How are you going to count on each other? What kind of network can you start building for yourselves? So I've been involved with a green infrastructure group for about as long as I've been involved coming here. So it was a group that wasn't funded really well, but we all had similar problems, similar challenges. Every other month we would talk on the phone. Sometimes we would do webinars and we would share our challenges and our successes and learn from each other. So Portland, this year, just this week, Monday through Wednesday, was the second convening. We found a funder. There are a lot of private foundations in the United States that are very interested in green infrastructure because they know it's about community growth. So they helped to fund. And so the attendees, you know, it's free for us because we're all from the public jurisdiction, so we can't pay necessarily to go to these conferences. But they're not really a conference, more of a convening is what we call them. So the funders will pay for the lodging and the travel expenses, which is great. So there were 40 jurisdictions that came to Portland. The other one, the very first one, was in Philadelphia 2 years ago. And that one, I think, had about 45 jurisdictions come. So we all still know we have problems, and we all still want to figure out how to build our capacity. So again, this exchange, and it doesn't cost anybody to join. I just tell my cohorts in other cities, just go to the site, sign up, and you're a member. But we also know, I think, what was brought out by Guadalupe, was about the combined sewer overflows. Most of the cities in the east coast of the United States have combined sewer overflows. And EPA is very aware of that, and it's a big safety hazard when it rains too much, because that sewer ends up in our waters. So those cities are the cities that are getting regulated. Regulated cities have more incentive to do green infrastructure than unregulated cities like Tucson. We do it because we think it's the right thing to do. We think it's about water resources, so we do it. But those cities like Philadelphia, Portland, and Los Angeles, they're big, but they're driven to do that and report and do the maintenance, do the metrics, because they have to do that reporting. We don't have to do it. We're just still trying to figure out how to do the metrics, and because we don't have to report to anyone. So we're learning from those cities how to do the metrics, how to do the maintenance. It's a little different. Every time I go, I always say, I'm from the arid Southwest, and our climate, our soils, the way our water hydrology works is much different than Philadelphia or Portland or even Northern California. So there are other Southwest cities, El Paso, Albuquerque, and we're trying to figure it out together from the Western region areas. Okay, so Tucson is about building resiliencies. And then we're sharing our experiences, just like all 4 of these water, green infrastructure conferences have been, or summits. It has been all of you listening to other members, sharing their experiences, some going a little further, taking that experience and putting it into action. So I challenge the rest of you to put your ideas into action as well and improve your communities. So this was Portland. Okay, so Portland's one of those that has great green infrastructure. You know, they have money to throw into it also. This used to be all piped. It was an underground river at one point, and then they exposed it. You know, they worked with the Audubon. They daylighted the river, and then they're also collecting water from off the streets as well. And the neighborhood, it's right downtown. They're so happy because they see egrets and I'm not going to say flamingos, but all these water birds that they've never seen before. So they're coming into the urban areas. All right. So just as here, we could see some cities that have gone pretty far, taken the actions, moved forward. We see also in our group, there are cities that have taken action and moved quite a bit forward than other cities. Some cities are just coming up. And so we're still all sharing all those stories. And we're still trying to figure out in some way how to institutionalize all these policies. And I say institutionalize not to make everybody do everything, but it's a lot of that equity issue. How do we make sure that all populations have access to that water? All right, so there we are. That just happened on Tuesday. We're talking, and it's a practitioners network, and there's a lot of things online if you want to Google. Green Infrastructure Leadership Exchange, you can get to that website. We have some conversations going, some experiences, stories, questions. But it's all about cultivating that mindset, the mindset of the regulators and the regulated as well. We're trying to figure out not to be adversarial, but to work together and how to make that community work. And the funders, oh my God, it's just amazing in the United States. The Pisces Foundation, Bluebird Foundation, they're huge foundations, and they're pouring millions of dollars, not into projects, but into cultivating this capacity. Because they think that if you can grow your team and your network, that then you're going to learn how to take care of the projects. So they're building capacity. And that's what they're interested in. And again, they're interested in it because they think community is important. Climate change is happening, and with water being one of the most important research sources, there's a subset of this funders organization that just look at green infrastructure. So, you know, maybe you border people, maybe you can pitch it to them. So here you are, right, today. You're here today. What are you going to do? All right? It's all about you. You're the network now. So team up with each other, talk to each other, learn from each other, right? I'm learning from you as well. That's why I love to come here. And then figure out what you want to do. Figure out how do you want to build your capacity. What is your role in green infrastructure? It's not just to sit here, but it's to take action, right? Who's going to take action? Who thinks green infrastructure is important? Yes, everybody should be raising their hand. Right. Okay, so that's it. That's my spiel. Go out there and make a difference.
En el trabajo que ha hecho Tucson de manera interdisciplinaria, sobre todo fomentando la regulación para poder aplicar este tipo de técnicas de infraestructura verde. Me llamó mucho la atención este concepto de un agua dentro del concepto de tiene que ver con la visión de planeación integral por cuenta, que es una forma que se puede comprender, y la parte de equidad en el en la disponibilidad de agua para todos, ¿no? Eso creo que tiene que ver con esta parte. Me llama mucho la atención también en lo que maneja de que el agua pues es para todos y debe tener un valor para que podamos concientizarnos de su aprovechamiento. Y las 6 áreas de acción que están aplicando son importantísimas y tiene que ver con esta planeación integral holística, muy importante, los sistemas agrícolas sustentables, inclusión social y económica, eso está presente en todas las presentaciones que hemos tenido en los foros, corrientes saludables, inclusión social, sistemas operadores confiables y resilientes, muy importante ese concepto. Y el hecho de tener una forma diferente de ver el agua, el aprovechamiento a lo mejor de las aguas grises, de las aguas fluviales, el uso de agua tratada. Entonces creo que todos esos conceptos son importantes. Dicho habiendo hecho este resumen, pasamos a preguntas del público. Dr. Welch. Wolf, perdón.
Is that working? There it is. Irene, hi. Thanks for more information about Watershed. And a question for you and how you're seeing things working in Tucson. In Seattle, I have a colleague who is the outreach director for new green infrastructure projects across Metro Seattle. And she does very intensive workshops within communities. And often the first reaction by residents is not very positive to the idea. She has heard, "You're taking away my parking spaces. Our babies will drown. We'll get dengue fever." And in time and ongoing explanation and also modeling of some key facilities around the city that people can go see, the opinions, the perceptions turn. What has been your experience in that regard in Tucson?
I think I met her in Portland from Seattle. And I would say that it's not any different in any community, that you're always going to have the folks who are the naysayers. And a lot of times it's the businesses, because they don't want their parkings taken away. But I think, again, it's trying to build that capacity, and as you alluded to, that outreach and that education is going to have to be constant. I give Tucson Water a lot of credit for their conservation programs, but they've been doing it for 50 years. It's going to be the same thing with any new program. It's going to take time, and there'll always be that backlash. The best always is to find your supporters, the leaders, as people in this room, to be the speakers for the community.
¿Otra pregunta?
Everybody's going to go out there and do something, right? Go out and reach out, do that education.
Hi, thanks for your explanation. One of the biggest problems we have here is we do have some places that actually are reservoirs of water here in Hermosillo through the whole year. But the thing is, they're always filthy. How should we, because those reservoirs that we still have here are being right now filled with land, with soil. So we're going to lose them because people are actually against water being there. But there are actually a lot of fauna living there. How do you say, garzas? Garzas, wildlife there. And people doesn't like it because the others are amazingly bad, but it's actually beautiful. Yep. So how should we try to do something? Because I'm from one very interested in cleaning that area and not infill?
Well, I'm not a hydrologist, so I'm not sure I can answer that question. It's that whole watershed problem. You know, what's happening upstream, you're going to have to address that because that's some of the sediment that's coming in. The other is there a comparable, or is like either the Nature Conservancy or Audubon here in Mexico? Yeah, so, you know, it's working with them for the native habitat stuff, you know, the birds. Because I know Tucson has non-native birds that, you know, flutter around everywhere also. Again, it's finding your partners, finding that collaboration, because you're not going to solve the problem by yourself, and I'm not going to have the answer for you either.
Anyone else? Again, from your experience in Tucson, in Seattle and some other communities where I've engaged with people about this, where my sense of today's meeting is we are hearing from policymakers and people who are working toward regulatory and legislative support of green infrastructure. And then we're also hearing from a professional tier, engineers, designers, who help them to help us understand how to implement green infrastructure. In Seattle, there's this middle tier of nonprofits and community groups. They're the middle ground, they're very nimble. They receive grants, they move it through the community in much the way that you described, rather than a rebate program, paying up front for rain gardens in certain communities and an equity sort of purpose. Do you see that same sort of social, not segregation, social layering in all of this happening?
Oh, absolutely. They're part of the game also. Watershed Management is a nonprofit that was born in Tucson, and they've come here to this conference. They've helped Hermosillo put some of those, learn how to put those medians in. So you are absolutely correct. They are an important ingredient in the whole mix of implementation, as well as getting the word out.
¿Alguien más?
Okay. Go out there and capture the rain.
Bien, pues muchas gracias, doctora.